Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 97, Chapter 97, entitled Average Friday. Izuku was one of the first students to arrive in the classroom, as was normal ever since he took the morning train. He felt a bit awkward, wondering how the day would go after the Civil War. He saw Aizawa sleeping away in his yellow sleeping bag in the corner of the room, dark bags under his eyes. After about 5 minutes, Yamada came in, and he gave a fond look towards Aizawa, holding a cup of coffee which he placed on the desk. The man turned to him, giving a smile. "How are you?" he asked, voice quiet. "I'm good," Izuku said, his own voice fairly quiet, or at least he thought it was. He had mostly grasped talking at a normal volume, though he still had some slip-ups, a few having happened over the last 3 days during the training exercise. "I'm so proud of you, little listener," the blonde said, giving a smile. "You did really good in the event," the man said. Izuku flushed a bit, giving a small, shy smile at the praise. "It was a team effort," he said, waving his hands a bit. "A team that you led," Yamada said. The man grinned. "How are you handling your new quirk?" he asked, looking towards the dark green shadow that was on his shoulders. Izuku shuffled. "So far we're all right. Last night was a bit of a trial, but we got through it," he said, petting the dragon shadow, which made a happy purring sound. "That's good. During afternoon lessons, I'm sure Sho will have you work with Tokiyami in order to control your dark shadow," Yamada said. Izuku gave a nod in response. That made sense, since Tokiyami was familiar with his own quirk. Yamada came over, a hand lifting up, gently lowering to his head, the man ruffling his hair. Izuku gave a pleased smile, enjoying the friendly touch. "I have to get to my own class. Make sure the sleepyhead wakes up in time to give homeroom announcements," he said, giving finger guns. "See you during English," the man chirped, leaving the room. "Bye," Izuku said, watching the man leave. A couple minutes later, Ida came into the room, waving at him. "Hello, Izuku," the boy said. "Hello, Tenya," Izuku responded. "How are you today?" the boy asked. "I'm good, you?" Izuku asked. "I'm well, thank you for asking," the taller boy said. "You really surprised me during the Civil War," Tenya said. "You were really scary, and I am glad you're on the side of justice." Izuku flushed. "I wasn't that scary, was I?" he asked, shuffling a bit. "You were, but that's a good thing, given you were the leader of the villain team," Tenya said, smiling at him. As they spoke, more students came in, and Izuku blinked, noticing something odd. A good chunk of his classmates had a black pin with a green smiley face on it. "Denki?" he asked, turning to his friend. "Yeah, Izu?" the boy responded, smiling at him, golden eyes lighting up. What's with the pins?" he asked, seeing Tenya turn around, heading towards his seat, and he saw a pin on the boy's backpack, causing him to flush. Why was everyone wearing the pin? The smiley face was just for the Civil War, so why continue wearing it? And why were some of the students who had been on the hero team wearing them? "Well, it's because we support you," Denki answered. "Dude, you were so awesome, and what you said is true. Our society won't stay stable forever if we don't change. You want to bring this change, and we want to help you," he answered. "The Electric One is correct. We see the darkness that creeps in our society, and you will be the one to reveal that darkness and help to guide our society, even shrouded in our own shadows," Fumikage said. Izuku was blushing, seeing various classmates nodding in agreement. Why did they think he would be able to bring a change? Yes, a change was needed, but he was just himself. "Everyone sit down," Aizawa-sensei said, standing up. The students went to take their seats. "All of you did very well during the Civil War. Us teachers are currently going through and grading your results. You will get your results back next week," the teacher informed them. "For today, it will be business as normal." Aizawa informed them of some normal school-related things, and then they had the rest of homeroom to do work on whatever they needed to work on. During this time, Yaoyorozu came over to him. "Hey, Midoriya," she said. Hello, Izuku replied, glancing at her with a tilted head. I was wondering if you needed a light source or something to help out, she asked, kindness in her voice. Izuku's dark shadow hissed a little bit, baring dark teeth at the girl. We're fine right now, thank you, though, Izuku said. Though they are a bit bored, he admitted. He could feel the feelings from his dark shadow as well as how it wasn't particularly happy with being called a they. But so far, his dark shadow couldn't seem to speak yet. I can create something for them to play with, Yaoyorozu offered. Izuku smiled. Thank you, he said, giving a nod, accepting the offer. After a few suggestions, the Quirk now had a golden ball it was playing with, happy and pleased. Tokiyami's dark shadow soon came out and joined in playing with Izuku's, the two shadows tossing the ball back and forth or diving underneath the desk. Some of the students were distracted watching, but given they didn't have a lot of work assigned, it wasn't a big deal, except for those who had procrastinated. Towards the end of the homeroom, the two had mostly forgotten about the ball, instead playing tag. As the bell rang, it took a minute for Azashi to come in. Hello, The man cried out, stumbling and tripping, falling to the floor. There was a heartbeat of silence, and then Aizawa deadpanned. Mic drop. Eraser! Yamada whined, going to sit up, pouting as he rubbed at his neck a bit. Students giggled a bit at that, though Tenya still asked, Are you okay? Yeah, a little fall won't hurt little old me, the hero said, giving finger guns as he stood back up, looking back where he had tripped. Now, who left this ball on the floor? He asked. The two shadows looked abashed, and Izuku's went over, nuzzling Yamada. The man smiled, petting the Quirk. Well, I guess I can't blame you for having some fun. Just be careful leaving toys where someone can trip, he said good-naturedly. The two shadows nodded, dark shadow saluting. Yes, sir, they said, and they went, returning to Tokiyami, while Izuku's went back to wrap around his neck. Yamada smiled, and Aizawa left, heading towards his next class. Soon, class was passing by like normal, the voice hero animatedly teaching English to the class. Next came math, which Powerloader was still teaching. The man came into the class covered with some soot and sighing tiredly. The class didn't bother asking. By this point, they all knew asking would get them the answer of whatever crazy invention Hatsume had been working on that had blown up. The class also liked Powerloader as a teacher better than Ectoplasm, even the man's teaching from the first week or two before he had become so snappish and hostile. Powerloader made things easier to understand, as well as more fun. And while the class didn't need to know some of the applications he gave, it was still useful to have a general understanding of the things he spoke about. After math class, it was time for art history, and Midnight came in, grinning, as she cracked her whip. Who's ready for a lesson on the construction of art in ancient history? The class groaned, and Midnight chuckled, launching into a lesson. Soon class ended, and it was time for modern literature. Cementos smiled, teaching them, and class once more passed normally. The group walked to the lunchroom, Denki whining. Dude, how come classes are so normal? Why wouldn't they be normal? Tenya replied. I mean, we just got done with the Civil War, so it feels like today shouldn't be so normal, Uraraka said. The group of friends sat at the table, Nato coming over and joining them, also sporting a green smiley face badge. How are you, my rival? Nato asked, taking a seat. I'm well. How are you? Izuku answered. I'm doing good. Classes have been strange today, and Kendo thinks it's because we're all still feeling a bit on edge from the Civil War, since we haven't had time to fully relax and process things, Nato said. Huh. Maybe that's why most of us still feel like things are off, Uraraka said. That makes so much sense, Denki said. Lunch passed by, with a group of friends talking. They returned to classes, where Aizawa taught them ethics and laws. And then they had science with 13, before foundational heroics. All right, everyone. Today we will be working on your quirks, practicing using them safely. If you need help, come ask, the man said. Izuku went over to Fumikage, and the two started talking, their dark shadows coming out. My sibling wishes you to use Z-Zer pronouns, and Z agrees that Z should have a different name from me, Dark Shadow informed them. Fumikage blinked. You can understand Zer, he asked. Yes, I can speak with Zer mentally, the Quirk answered. Why can't Z speak like you? Fumikage asked. Z's still learning, Dark Shadow answered. You were young when I first formed, so you might not remember, but I had to learn how to speak, the Quirk said. What sort of name would Z like? Izuku asked. Z has no preference, Dark Shadow informed them. Izuku gave a hum. Ryu? He suggested. Given Z seemed to like being a dragon. Z tilted a head at that and looked at Dark Shadow with their green eyes. A moment later, Dark Shadow spoke. Z likes it, but feels something is missing, they said. Izuku hummed. Ryuto, he suggested, getting a head shake. Ryoko? He suggested after a moment of thought. There was a pause as Z thought about this. Z likes it better than Ryuto, but would like to keep going, Dark Shadow informed. He and Fumikage threw out a few more names, yet none were liked by the Quirk. His classmates, hearing what was going on, started giving their own suggestions. It was Ojiro, though, who said, What about Kaida? That had his Quirk perking up, looking pleased. Z really likes Kaida, Dark Shadow said. Izuku smiled. All right, Kaida it is, he agreed, and his Quirk came over nuzzling his cheek with their head. All right, now that Kaida has chosen a name, get back to work on your quirks unless you'd rather go to Gym Iota, Aizawa said, flashing a toothy grin at the class. The students quickly got back to practicing with their quirks, which had Kaida and Dark Shadow sparring against each other, which mostly was Dark Shadow demonstrating how to change shapes and to do attacks and defend their hosts, encouraging Kaida to attack them. Fumikage was telling Izuku about the drawbacks and benefits of Dark Shadow, and how to get around some of the drawbacks. Izuku listened and took notes. Eventually, the class came to an end, and the bell rang, signaling the end of the day and that it was time to go home. Izuku rode the train home with some of his friends by his side. Arriving at home, he saw his mom was back, though Auntie Mitsuki wasn't here. Hey, Mom, he greeted. He got no response back. Izuku sighed and went to put his bag down, feeling like something was missing. But no matter how much he checked, he couldn't find anything missing. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 97 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 98 will be up next. Let me know your thoughts and reactions in the comments below, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.